Welcome back, everybody. This is Mr. Storm, and this is part 4, I think, of the gravity game tutorial. In the last video, I had a little bit of an issue with not being able to create prefabs, and I guess the issue is still happening. I'm not quite sure. That's never happened to me in Unity before. But what's nice is there's a little bit of a workaround. If you drag objects from your hierarchy down into your prefabs folder, it'll make new prefabs as well. So that's nice. We don't have to worry about that. All right. Now there's one prefab that we want to create in order to have all of them, because we're going to need 4 different prefabs. We have our player, we have our spikes, we have our checkpoint, but we need a copy of our checkpoint. We need a different kind of checkpoint. And this checkpoint is going to be the end of the level checkpoint. This is going to be the thing that indicates it's the end of the level. So I just drug out a checkpoint prefab. What I'm going to do is go in here and change the color on the sprite renderer of the checkpoint prefab, just so it's different. We can tell that it's different. Make it a nice lime green. Okay. And the cool thing about prefabs is, if you'll notice, it already has its box collider around it. Okay, it carries over all of its elements. I don't need to create a new box collider, which is nice. So now I can take this checkpoint and drag it down here into my prefabs. I'm going to rename it and call it end level. And there we go. And so now we have our main camera, we have end level, we have a spike, we have the level itself, we have our starting checkpoint, and our player. Okay, so let's go ahead and start setting up this level so that it is what we want. First of all, we want our player to start on the checkpoint, and that'll be important here in a minute. You'll see why that's important. But we want our player to always start on the checkpoint for this game. Next thing is we want to set up our spikes, because right now our game's kind of boring. He just runs, there's one spike there. He can flip up to the roof and then flip back down and then run to the end. So we want to add some more obstacles here. And we want to think about, when we get into level design, it's important to think about what we're teaching our character or our player about the game, right? So this level is designed to teach your player that you need to run to the left, right? Because there's nothing here. He's starting all the way up against the right wall. Normally, whenever you play a game like this, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to run to the right. Nope, we want our player running to the left. We're going to teach him that by putting him right against the wall here, so he can see, oh, hey, there's nowhere to go. And the next thing we want to teach him is that these spikes hurt you, right? So we're going to put spikes pretty early on in the level so that he can run into them, and if he does, he goes back to the beginning of the level. That tells the player, hey, these spikes hurt you. The other thing that we did was I made them red to communicate to the player that, hey, this is dangerous. Sometimes you can use color to communicate that kind of stuff. But this is a dangerous spike, and we don't want it to be here. What we want them to do is to have to kind of problem solve. Like, they get to the spike, they know it kills you, so what do? What we want is we want them to hit the jump button. And when they do, we want them to jump up, reverse gravity, and then stick to the top of the level. And that'll get them to go, oh, wait, you can do that. So then we want to have some spikes over here to show them that, hey, you can reverse gravity again to drop back down to the original part of the level. And then the only other object that we're going to have in this level is going to be the end level goal. So that teaches them that's what we're going for. All right. So this level is going to be very, very simple. So with this, we're going to have 5 spikes here first. So I'm going to create a bunch of duplicates. And actually first, before that, I want to organize my hierarchy a little bit better. I don't want to have a bunch. We're going to have 10 spikes in this level, and that's a lot, and it's going to make this hierarchy really, really huge. But in the next couple levels, there are going to be a lot of spikes. So we want to organize our hierarchies a little bit. So I'm going to create a new empty, and I'm going to rename this, and I am going to call it spikes. And then I'm going to put my spike inside of there. Okay. Now I'm going to Control D to have 5 spikes. I want 5 different spikes. And this spike I'm going to set it at 0. And this spike I'm going to set it at 1. And this spike, I'm going to set it at 2. And this spike, I will set it at -1. And the last spike, I'll set it at -2. Now notice I did it like that so that they line up perfectly. And they're all on the same Y plane as well. But they're kind of hovering, and I don't want them there. So I'm going to grab them, and then I'm going to just adjust the Y until it hits the bottom of the screen. So now that's what I want. Those are exactly where I want them. Perfect. And then I want to Control D. Control D. So duplicate those because I want another row of spikes up here at the top. Okay. Now I want them to be flipped upside down. So a very easy way to do that is when they're all selected, we go up to the rotation, and on the Z rotation, we rotate it by 180 degrees. And that just flips our spikes so that now they are in the right position. And then we will just put those kind of where we want them. Perfect. Okay, so now we have our level set up exactly the way we want it to be set up. Perfect. Let's save this scene. Save the scene. And let's go back and test our splash screen real quick and make sure that that button brings us into that scene very quickly. Play. And it's saying it can't be loaded because the build settings. Perfect. That's actually kind of good. That's what we want. I mean, it's not really what we want. I'm trying to pretend like I didn't, don't let me try to fool you. Don't let me lie to you. I actually expected that not to happen. But I know how to fix it, so it is kind of a good thing. Let me show you how to fix that. Let's go back to our splash scene. In our build settings menu, which we've used a couple times to finalize our projects and turn in our assignments, in this build settings menu, it has this option called scenes in build. And I can click add open scenes, and it'll add the scene that I want, right? What actually happens is that adds that scene into an array of scenes that are available for this game. So I have that scene now loaded in. Okay, great. Now when I go to level 1 and go to my build settings, it still only has that splash scene. So I want to actually add that scene as well, level 1. So level 1 is the next scene in the build settings. So I'm actually going to close those out. Now when I go back to my splash scene and test it out, it should actually work. And it does. So I click the button and it brings me in here. But I can't do anything. I can't move. Nothing happens. So we need to actually get into the scripting part. We need to start working on the scripting. And I think, you know what? Actually, let's go ahead and get some easy stuff knocked out. Let's open up our script here, our game script, and let's start planning out things that we know we're going to need to do. And then in the next video, we'll actually get down to actually scripting them. Okay, so what do we need to do up here? Let's see. We need a speed variable, right? Because our character is going to move. We also need to check for position because we want to have a variable that will store the character's position when it runs through a checkpoint, right? So that's something that we need to do. We need to, let's see. We need to check collisions, and some of the collisions we need to check for are checkpoint and end level, obviously, right? End level, and we also need to check for spikes. So basically we need to figure out what happens when we collide with all of those objects. We need to, what else? We need to run, obviously. Wrong thing. We need to set up player movement. And we need to handle the jumping, or wrong. That's not what I wanted to do. We want to handle whatever this jump is going to be. It's going to be basically reversing gravity. We need to handle that. We need to handle the animations. So we need to control our animations. And let's see. What else? I think that's probably it. Honestly, I don't think anything else is... Yeah, man. I think a lot of that's all good. Okay, cool. So player movement is going to be handled inside of a... Player movement's going to be handled inside of update method. And actually, because we're moving a rigid body, it's going to be inside of a... I will just do... we could do fixed update. Fixed update. And... Okay. And actually, player movement, the jumping, the animations, all that is going to happen inside of the update method. So we can get rid of that. So, all right. Let's see. All of these are going to happen inside of a... Well, actually, there are going to be two different methods here. We're going to need an on-trigger enter and an on-collision enter for these. Because remember, the checkpoint and the end level, this guy and the checkpoint, these are collisions. Or these are triggers. They're not actually colliders. So we're going to have a... let's see... void on trigger enter 2D, and that's going to be collider. We're actually going to call that col because I don't like to type out the word collision a bunch of times forever. And then those are going to be the end level and checkpoints. So those are going to be inside of those methods. And then the spikes, that's going to be inside of a on collision enter 2D. On collision enter 2D, and that's going to be collision 2D. We'll call that col as well. All right, we'll make that private as well. Doesn't really matter. Scope doesn't really matter in this one because, again, everything's handled inside of one script. So this process right now, what you're seeing me do, this is kind of how I write new scripts. I plan out what I'm going to need. Those are my check for collisions. I plan out what I need, and then I figure out what methods I'm going to write those things in. And then, I kind of just get rid of these comments as I build the script. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to need a check for triggers, check for collisions. I'm going to need to have a fixed update for our movement and jumping and animations. And then I have my play click button. And then I'm probably going to add some more methods down here when we get to the end of the game. But for right now, I think this is pretty much it. Okay. Yeah, looks good. All right, so in the next video, we will flesh out this script. We'll actually create the entire script here, and then test it out, make sure the game actually works the way we want it to. And then we will, let's see, probably have another video where we finish building all the other levels, or I at least show you how to handle that, handle building those levels. All right, that's it for this video. I will see you next time. Thanks for paying attention. Bye.